So for this video, me and my lovely fiance Stacy are going to be doing recommendations and your TBR for Battle of the Bands 3, which is going to be taking place on the Book of Strummer Discord.
In the month of April.
Yes.
So usually for these videos, we share both of our TBRs, or we would alternate like one or the other. But I think this round, you're not planning a strict TBR. You're going to kind of lean into mood reading and maybe see what you have time for.
Yes, because my work schedule is going to be all over the place in March. So
Right.
I don't think I'm going to actually have time to read 20 books. So
Yes.
I'm going to be doing a lot of mood reading, I think.
Yeah, and it's just going to be a busy month for us in general.
For reasons.
Yes. For reasons which you will find out at some point in the future.
Hint, hint. So the format is that we're going to go through the prompts, all 20 prompts for the readathon. You're going to say what you're planning on reading for your TBR for that prompt, and then I'm going to give several suggestions and recommendations for the prompts.
Yeah, that we came up with together. So sometimes I might have commentary to jump in on with those two.
Yep. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it.
So prompt number 1 is play that funky music, and this is to read a book with a funky, weird, or striking cover. And for me, I'm going to be putting Dark Ride by Ian Rob Wright here. I thought this cover was kind of funky and striking, kind of a little bit of both. If you know, you know. It's our Thrill, Chill, or Kill book club pick. So our thriller horror book club pick that we do one a month for. And it's a nice short one. I think it's like a 5-hour audio, and it's available on Everend. So should be a good time. Also, both of us have read and enjoyed one of his other horror books.
And I also have several examples for this prompt. This would be kind of a funky cover with the color scheme. This is After the Quake by Haruki Murakami. And this one's very striking. Wonderland by Zoe Stage, one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, that one's kind of hard to tell in the detail, but if you look closely, it's like a person's head made out of tree branches.
Yep. And then if you just want something weird or just out of the ordinary,
With funky coloring.
Bunny, which I'm going to be reading in March. And then this is just creepy. The Grip of It by Jacques Jemp. Very peculiar.
So prompt 2 is Hooked on a Feeling, and it's to immediately binge the next book in a series. Later on in my TBR, you'll see I have plans to start this series, and I'm hoping it goes well. So I plan on binging right into Scarred by Emily McIntyre. It's the second Never After, I think the series is called Never After, book.
And I have several examples, like if you're King fans, you can jump into Gwendy's Magic Feather or Final Task, which is the sequel to Button Box, or you can do Wayward Children by
Sean McGuire.
Yep.
Those are short.
Or if you want to join us for the Harry Potter read-along, we're going to be reading book 2 in April, which is Chamber of Secrets. Very short, and you can definitely count that.
So prompt 3 is American Pie, and that's to read a book by a popular American author. And for this, I'm going to go Pierce Brown and finally pick up Dark Age, hopefully. I do have an alternate here in case I don't have time to get to this, 800-page chonker. I will at least really enjoy my time reading and want to be reading if I'm reading this, which is my logic for including such a chonker, but we'll see if it makes the cut.
And I've got some examples. We've got Stephen King, of course, arguably one of the most famous American authors. And then we've also got Child of God by Cormac McCarthy. And then if you want to go in a completely different route, very famous, Goosebumps by R.L. Stein.
Yeah, those are
very
nice
short
and
and famous.
Yeah. All right, so prompt 4 is Stuck in the Middle with You, and that's to read the second book in a trilogy or a middle book in a series, so not the first or last book if it's longer than a trilogy, but anything in between. And for this, I'm going to be reading Love Her or Lose Her by Tessa Bailey. It's the second book in her Hot and Hammered romance trilogy.
And some examples that are some of my favorites are Waking Gods, which is book 2 in the Themis Files. And then we also have Mr. Monster, which is the second John Cleaver book.
My favorite John Cleaver book.
And then we have She Dreams in Blood, which is the second book in Obsidian Path trilogy. And then we have one of Stacy's favorites, Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. Meh.
Don't man one of my favorite books. So prompt 5 is Blinded by the Light, and this is to read a book with a character who's blinded by their ambition. And I'm gonna kind of spin this and not go for a main character, but a side character who's blinded by their ambition, and their ambition is affecting the main character. And for this, it's gonna be I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. And if you don't know, this is the story of the girl who plays iCarly, and it's basically her mom pressuring her to like be certain ways in order to be great for TV kind of thing. And it's like her talking about her trauma and yeah.
And some examples that you can use for this is Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Main character is definitely blinded by their ambition. And then one of my all-time favorites, Drums, Girls, and Dangerous Pie. The main character, yeah, I don't want to spoil too much, but he's a little kid and blinded by his own ambition. And then we have Escape by Ian Rob Wright. Me and Stacy both really like this, and several characters are blinded by their ambition.
Yes. I also really like Drums, Girls, and Dangerous Pie.
That's good.
So the first prompt for the 80s is Take On Me, and this is to read a book you're scared to take on. And for me, that is Tender is the Flesh by Agustina Bazterrica. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But my reasoning for being afraid to take this on is, if you don't know, when I was young, my family raised and slaughtered our own animals for meat. And so I know what that process entails, what it looks like, what it smells like. And so I'm kind of concerned that reading that about humans will be just a little much. So I'm a little bit scared to take this on for that reason. Because if you don't know, this book deals with like cannibalism and what would happen if all the animal meat in the world was tainted, I think.
And you can go with this in several different directions. You could do it maybe like a classic that you're scared to take on, because a lot of people are kind of wishy-washy on classics. So like something like Phantom of the Opera. I'll give it a shot one day, but I've been afraid to read it just because I don't know if it's going to be any good. And then, you know, you could go like, if something's going to be too creepy for you, maybe like You by Caroline Kepnes, or Caroline Kepnes. You know, people might be scared to read a stalker book.
Yeah, and that one's not just a stalker book, but it puts you in the perspective of the stalker and kind of has you empathize with them. So that is like a whole other level to why you might be a little scared to take it on.
Or you could try to read a genre that's out of your comfort zone. So Legends and Lattes is like cozy fantasy.
It's out of my comfort zone.
And then something like Cradle.
Yeah, if you're not used to progression fantasy. So prompt 7, Maniac, a book you can binge in 1 or 2 sittings. For this, I'm going to go for Notes from the Midnight Driver by Jordan Sonnenblick. And this is a shorter middle grade. And I've read some of his other middle grade books before and enjoyed them, so I'm looking forward to it.
And a couple of other books you could do is The Couple Next Door by Sherry Lapina. Very short thriller. You could also do Ogres by Adrian Tchaikovsky, which is a novella.
Yeah, sci-fi dystopian novella.
And then you could do more Sonnenblick, or you could do even Agatha Christie. You can definitely binge through those very quickly.
Yeah, any short thriller or anything short. So prompt 8 is Never Gonna Give You Up, and this is Rick Roll. Roll a die to determine the length of your read for this prompt. And if you roll a 1, it's 150 pages. And then for every subsequent dot on the die, you add 50. So if you rolled a 2, it would be 200. If you rolled a 3, it'd be 250, etc. So I rolled a 5, which means 350 pages. And I'm going to go for Check and Mate by Allie Hazelwood. And it's like 347 pages in this paperback. It should be a good time because I enjoy her other romances. So 9, The Safety Dance, is to read a book that's a safe bet that you know you'll enjoy. And for me, that is probably going to be Prince of Fools by Mark Lawrence. It's the first book in the Red Queen's War trilogy. And this will actually be a reread for me, but I don't really remember much about it the first time, mainly because I was kind of in a slump and I was sort of new to audiobooks and I did it on audio. But anyway, I really like Mark Lawrence's other books, so I know it's a safe bet.
And for me, and probably a lot of y'all, a safe bet would be like Stephen King, so Dolores Claiborne. A lot of people love Dolores Claiborne, especially you.
Me included. Yep.
Or you could do next book in a series, because like that's a safe bet if you liked the first book or whatever. And I've been really enjoying this, so something like this would definitely work. Or you could have somebody recommend you a book, which I think Stacy would have a really good time with Blackstone Heart.
Yes, a lot of people with similar tastes to me really enjoy it, and a lot of people have said it's my cup of tea, so that would be something that for me I would say is a safe bet for me to enjoy. Prompt 10 is Don't You Forget About Me, and that's to read a book that you wanted to read a long time ago but still haven't. And for me, that's going to be Eidolon by Grace Draven. This is the second book in the Wraith King series. So I read and really enjoyed book 1, didn't own book 2 at the time. Now I finally have it in my hands, so I'm excited to get to it.
And for me, Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami would definitely count because I've read a lot of his stuff, but I've had this book for years and haven't been able to get to it. And then for something like Stacy, one of her favorite books is The Passengers. So, John Marrs, Keep It in the Family. This is something you've been meaning to read for a while.
Yeah. So the first 90s prompt 11, is You Can't Touch This, and that's to read a book that you don't own physically. And for this, I am going to go with Tools of Engagement, which is the third Hot and Hammered book by Tessa Bailey, and I am getting the audio from the library.
And you could do anything from the library, audiobooks, ebooks, as long as it's not a physical copy.
Right, and if you're looking for audiobook recommendations, your favorite narrator is
Herbie Hayborn.
And my favorite is Tim Gerard Reynolds. Prompt 12 is Jump Around, and this is to read a book with multiple perspectives and or multiple timelines. And for this, I plan on getting to The Blood Mirror, which is the fourth Lightbringer book by Brent Weeks. And we've been doing a read-along of this one a month, and book 4 will fall in April. And it has multiple POVs, and in some cases, multiple timelines, so I'm looking forward to it.
So a couple examples would be Confessions, multiple POVs, also very short, very good. One of our favorites. And then we have Rhapsodic, which that's
one of my favorites.
Yeah.
This is multiple timelines.
And then one of my favorites, Lisa Jewell, sometimes both multiple POVs and multiple timelines.
Yep. Prompt 13 is Cotton Eye Joe, and that's to read a book with redneck, western, or country vibes. And I have big ambitions to catch up on the Cosmere this year. So I am going to be slotting The Alloy of Law, which is the first Mistborn Era 2 book, into this prompt, and it is Western.
And a couple of examples would be The Gunslinger by Stephen King. Definitely some Western vibes there. And then we also have Cormac McCarthy. A lot of his books definitely have a Western and country vibe. And then we also have something like The Exorcist House, which is definitely redneck and country. And then you wrote down here News of the World.
Yes, that's a very short Western story about a girl who's kind of like adopted by a traveling person who delivers the news in like pioneer days. So they're like riding on a wagon and traveling. So prompt 14 is Tub Thumping, and that's to read a book with a redemption story or persistent character. And for this, I'm going to be picking up How to Defeat a Demon King in 10 Easy Steps by Andrew Rowe. And if you've read the synopsis, you know the 10 easy steps aren't very easy. There sounds like there's kind of a lot involved, so I would categorize this as persistent character.
And if you want a persistent character, look no further than Roland the Gunslinger on his way to the Dark Tower. And we got Hunger Games.
Katniss is very persistent.
And then we also have The Martian by Andy Weir. Definitely a persistent character.
So prompt 15 is Closing Time, and that's to read the final book in a series or the last book in an author's backlist that you haven't read yet. So it's not necessarily their oldest book in the backlist, it's just the last one of their backlist that you haven't read. And for me, I'm going to be slotting in After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and this is the only Taylor Jenkins Reid I have not yet read.
And you could definitely count Only Human, which is the third and last book in the Themis Files trilogy. And you could also do I Don't Want to Kill You, which is book 3 in John Cleaver.
So just for an example, that is technically a 6-book series, but also like it was a trilogy originally. So you could count something that's like the end of like the original series.
And then for me, one of my new favorite authors is S.A. Cosby. And the only book that I have left to read by him is All Sinners Bleed.
So the first 2000s prompt 16, is Who Let the Dogs Out? And this is to read a popular book that you just don't understand the hype for. And for this, I'm going to be slotting in All Systems Red, which is the first Murderbot book by Martha Wells. And from what I know of this, it's kind of like Murderbot just wanting to sit around and watch TV and not wanting to do what they're designed for. And that kind of sounds like a little too cozy. Like I'm not really understanding why this is so exciting or popular, so I'm going to give it a whirl.
And all three of these examples are your examples. Piranesi, I love this, but you do not understand the hype for it.
No, it sounds very like convoluted or confusing. Like I don't understand.
And then also TJ Klune.
Yeah, that's very cozy. And if you know me, I don't understand the hype for cozy books necessarily. I'm like, but I want something high stakes. I want to be drawn in because I'm desperate to know what happens, you know?
And then you have Midnight Library.
Yeah. So this just didn't really understand the appeal of the premise in general, only because it just seems so out of left field. But I guess that's kind of magical realism for you. So prompt 17 is Smooth Criminal, and that's to read a book featuring a heist or an assassin. And here I plan on slotting Throne of Glass, which is the first book in Sarah J. Maas's Throne of Glass series, and it features an assassin, the main character.
And I have several examples. One of my all-time favorites is Blacktop Wasteland by S.A. Cosby, and this is all about a heist gone wrong. And then we have Six of Crows, which also features a heist.
Yep.
And then Kiss of Deception, which I think features an assassin.
Yes, it's young adult fantasy romance.
And then we have Billy Summers by Stephen King, and the titular character is an assassin.
Yeah. So prompt 18 is Cupid Shuffle, and that's to read a book that you randomly generated either from your TBR list or want to read list or bookshelves, etc. And for me, I randomly generated from my Goodreads want to read, and I ended up with Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough.
And you can do this either with your unread shelf or your Goodreads shelf, basically however you want to do it.
Yeah. So prompt 19 is Bad Day, and this is to read a book featuring a character who's having a really bad day or a really bad time of it in general. And for this, I'm going to go with Hooked, which is the first Never After book by Emily McIntyre. And from the synopsis, it kind of seems like this guy's out for revenge a little bit. It sort of talks about how he's down on his luck a little bit. So he's definitely having a bad time of it.
And a couple examples here is The Passengers, which features several characters having a very bad day. And then we have Stranger in the House by Shari Lapina, a person having a very bad day. And we have Mothered, which one of my favorite Zoe Stage books. And this character is just having a bad time in general.
Yeah, this is set during the start of the pandemic, right? Like COVID? Yeah. So.
That's the least of this character's problems.
Yeah, that's just the beginning. And the final prompt, prompt 20, is Sandstorm, and that's to read a book with a desert setting, or we'll also accept a drought setting. But I actually have a desert setting, and I'm going to be reading The Last Days of Old Cherokee by Bradley P. Beaulieu, and this is his newest novella in the Shattered Sands universe, which I'm otherwise caught up on.
And I'm not making a TBR, but you know I'm going to be reading that too.
Well, it's also like 151 pages, so and 151st page has like one line of text. So it's like the shortest possible.
And speaking of Shattered Sands, you could also read The Doors at Dusk and Dawn, which is actually our favorite of the novellas.
Yes, and you don't have to have any prior knowledge of the series to enjoy this. It is like a prequel.
And then you could also read City of Brass, the first book in the Davabad
I think.
Davabad trilogy. And then more Stephen King. You could read The Regulators, which also has a desert setting. And then you could also read The Dry by Jane Harper. Dry is in the title, so you'd figure it would be some kind of desert setting.
It is the desert of Australia. That one's more of like a crime. But then we also thought like drought setting, unsure if it's desert, could be, is Dry by Neil Shusterman. And I think that's set in California somewhere. So like maybe it's like the Mojave Desert or something. I don't know, but it's definitely a drought, so that would work.
All right, so that was Stacy's TBR and my and our recommendations for Battle of the Bands 3 one-hit wonders. And we showed y'all a lot of books, so hopefully y'all kind of can get an idea of what you want to read for the readathon.
Yeah, how to interpret the prompts maybe, or what you think you might want to read. Let us know what you're most excited for on your April TBR, or what prompt is your favorite.
And of course, if you're interested in joining the readathon, there's still a little bit of time, and you can use the link down below to go sign up.
Yeah, so you do that by joining the Discord and then hopping into the Choose Your Team channel and reacting with the corresponding emoji of the team you want.
Choose Team 70s.
I'll be on Team 80s this round, and we're going to kick 70s butt.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the YouTube channel and the Book of Strummer Discord, where all of this readathon madness is going to go down. And we have a bunch of read-alongs and book clubs going on, and Patreon and Amazon wishlist linked down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a fantastic day.
Bye.